all of a sudden, you didn't think you were on the same ship anymore. The crew changed completely. The crew got very nasty.
The atmosphere continued to deteriorate. There's no question about it. There was a mood of despair.
It's hard to describe. It's like going to a funeral.
Everybody's lives were at stake. They had nothing to go back to. They had lost their citizenship. They had lost all of their material possessions. Where were they going?
Now it was truly a voyage of the damned. The desperate passengers pawned their valuables to pay for cables to Europe appealing for help. The Joint Distribution Committee, set up to help refugee Jews, intervened again. France, Britain, Holland, and Belgium agreed to accept the refugees. Had they not, the captain had been prepared to set the ship afire off the English coast and evacuate the passengers. Now he made for Belgium. Finally, on June 17th, after 35 days at sea and more than 10,000 miles of travel, 907 Jews were almost back where they began.
At least we were not in Germany. And we really, fortunately enough, couldn't foresee our fate, which was coming.
The 288 refugees who went to England escaped damnation. Many of the men would fight Germany under British command. Most of the rest, who were taken in by Belgium and France and Holland, would spend the war years in concentration camps.
It's hard to believe that nobody knew, especially the government of the United States, what was going on in Hitler Germany. How could it be that it even was an issue that there was no room for 900 people who really went back to the worst situation a people could go to?
It's not a story we point to on Flag Day, and with cause. For purely selfish reasons, Hitler allowed those people to leave Germany. And for purely selfish reasons, Americans did not allow those people to come to America. It's important to remember that this, too, is part of the way we were. Come back to the summer of 1939, and a country still caught on the road to dreamland.
Our world continues, worlds apart, in the summer of '39.
3 little fishes in an itty-bitty pool.
Our world will be right back.
Welcome back to the summer of 1939, a time when America was innocent enough or ignorant enough to look into a mirror and mistake it for a crystal ball, which is where we were worlds apart from reality. The 1939 New York World's Fair, a fairy tale. They called the fair the world of tomorrow, but Hitler had another tomorrow in mind for the world, and none at all in mind for Germany's Jews. America didn't want to think about that, didn't want any part of Europe's troubles that summer, but summer would end, ready or not.
In Connecticut that summer, Igor Sikorsky was developing this country's first helicopter, the VS-300. He even lifted it a few inches off the ground. Our standing military establishment was not a whole lot more advanced. The United States Army numbered 200,000 officers and men, including the Air Corps. Hitler had 4 times that many soldiers in his Wehrmacht alone. And he had the Luftwaffe with its deadly Stuka dive bomber. The U.S. Air Corps had just adopted the B-17 bomber. Until 1938, this country did not even have a design for a standardized practical tank. Hitler had the Panzer, hundreds of Panzers, ready to pounce like jackals on a lamb.
What it was, quite simply, was the most awesome military machine the world had ever seen. And yet the Fuhrer was always looking for some new weapon, something even more powerful. Had he but known, what he was looking for was right under his mustache. In late 1938, at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute in Berlin, a team of German scientists had split the atom. It was in the labs of Drs. Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann. The third scientist was Dr. Lisa Meitner, a Jew who was later forced to flee Germany. In America, the physicist Niels Bohr announced what the Germans had discovered. The moment is recreated in a March of Time newsreel.
The German physicists Hahn and Strassmann have just verified that the uranium atom under neutron bombardment actually splits into two parts, one of which is barium.
Scientists were stunned by what they heard. Tests at the Carnegie Institute in Washington confirmed the news.
No longer any doubt about it. That uranium is splitting into at least two big parts, and those biggest kicks are nearly 100 million electron volts.
Eugene Wigner, physicist and Hungarian refugee, saw the danger.
We were afraid that there is a possibility for a bomb. We were very much afraid of that the Nazis will do it.
Wigner and Dr. Leo Szilard, still another Hungarian refugee, wanted to warn Roosevelt, believed only one man could get the message through. They went to see Albert Einstein. Both men had studied with him, but would he agree to help?
In 15 minutes about, he knew what we are talking about, understood it, and when we explained that we want to interest Roosevelt, he dictated a letter which he was willing to sign.
He warned the president about the German research, explaining that extremely powerful bombs of a new type might be built. He urged the president to begin American research. James Roosevelt recalls his father's reaction to this extraordinary letter from Einstein.
Professor Einstein's letter to my father was certainly taken very seriously and indicated the urgency of immediate appropriations to get started on research which would result in a reasonably short time in an effective military weapon. And it was the turning point, unquestionably, in our winning the battle for the production of an atomic weapon.
Einstein's letter was a turning point, but not a great leap forward. It would be nearly 3 years before the actual building of an atomic bomb began. FDR, you see, was preoccupied with preparing this country for a war that many Americans did not want to fight. And at the very least, he believed that we should provide goods and treasure to our European allies. Again, not an idea that all Americans shared. Already in June of 1939, to the dismay of the isolationists, Roosevelt had stage-managed a kind of royal propaganda show, the first visit in history of a reigning British monarch to the United States. FDR was the promoter. King George and Queen Elizabeth were the product. The occasion was formal, the reception warm. The tiny queen turned on her captivating smile. It was a hot, humid Washington day, but 600,000 Yankees turned out along Pennsylvania Avenue to gawk at and cheer the royal couple. At the Capitol, the king and queen were received by Congress. One friendly hand belonged to Senator Claude Pepper of Florida, who recalls that many of his colleagues were skeptical.
Some people asked the question, what were the British king and queen over here for? Were they trying to get us into any war in which they might become involved? You remember when they were over here in the summer, the war had not yet started. But there were others who said, now look here, don't let that British king and queen come over here and get us into a war. We want to be sure that that doesn't occur.
Part of the ceremony, laying a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier. But indeed, there was more to the royal visit than wreaths and military marches.
The official purpose was to have them come on a friendly visit as neighbors. The unofficial purpose was to give the American people something that they could like and cheer about on the Allied side, something they could understand and relate to, giving a sort of a moral boost to the forces against isolationism. They were greeted as heroes, and not just as sightseers, but as people that people really welcomed and were happy to see. And as a result, just because they were wonderful people, I think they contributed to the defeat of isolationism in the country.